I never thought delivering food in Mumbai could be anything more than exhausting rides through endless traffic, honking horns that never seemed to stop, and the constant sweat soaking through my shirt by the time the night shift was over. It was just a job, nothing glamorous, but it paid the bills. That's what I told myself every time I strapped on the insulated delivery bag and fired up my scooter. But the night that changed everything started out no different, except for one detail I can't shake before I clocked in. A couple of the older delivery guys pulled me aside outside the tea stall where we usually meet, their faces strangely serious. One of them, a wiry man named Imran who had been riding these streets longer than I'd been alive, lowered his voice and said, "Listen, kid, if you're running deliveries at night, there are certain rules. Laws of the street, you could say. You break them, you won't just lose money, you might not come back." The other one, Rajesh, who rarely spoke at all, just nodded slowly like he'd seen enough to know better than to laugh. I chuckled nervously, thought they were just trying to scare the new guy, maybe haze me a little. But the way their eyes lingered told me they weren't joking. Still, I brushed it off, grabbed my first order and told myself they were just being dramatic. Looking back now, I wish I had paid attention right from the start, because that was the night I learned the streets of Mumbai have laws no one writes down, and breaking them is more dangerous than any pothole or reckless driver. The first order of the night came through just as the clock hit 8:30. My phone buzzed in my pocket with that familiar chime, and I checked the screen. Butter chicken and naan, to be delivered to an apartment block nearby Kulla. Easy enough, or so I thought. I strapped the delivery bag to my scooter, double-checked the address, and revved up into the Mumbai night. The air was thick, heavy with exhaust fumes and the tang of fried food wafting from roadside stalls. I had ridden these streets 1,000 times in the daytime, but night was a different beast. The traffic thinned out, but the city didn't quiet down, it just shifted tone. Stray dogs barked at shadows, neon lights flickered above shuttered shops, and the narrow alleys seemed to breathe like they had a life of their own. I stopped at a red light where 3 other delivery riders were idling. One of them glanced at my bag and smirked. "First order tonight?" he asked. "Yeah," I said, nodding. "By Kulla side?" I raised my eyebrows. "How'd you know?" He didn't answer right away, just spat to the side and muttered, "Stick to the main road. Don't cut through Ray Road shortcut no matter what. You'll get there slower, but trust me, you don't want to see what comes out that way at night." Another rider chimed in with a laugh. "Scaring the new kid again, huh? Just let him figure it out." But then his smile faded a little too quickly and I caught the look in his eyes. It wasn't just a joke. The light turned green and we split in different directions. I couldn't shake their words, though. Why would they warn me so specifically? I told myself it was just superstition. Every city has its urban legends after all. Still, when Google Maps suggested the Ray Road shortcut, my thumb hovered for a moment. The screen showed it would save me 10 minutes. The rider's warning echoed in my head. I decided to test it. "How bad could it be?" I muttered, taking the turn. The road narrowed almost immediately, the main highway giving way to cracked asphalt and looming warehouses. The air grew colder somehow, and even though my engine buzzed, I swore I could hear faint whispers bouncing off the rusted walls. A flickering streetlight barely lit the way, buzzing like an angry insect. I pulled my jacket tighter. Halfway through the shortcut, my scooter coughed and sputtered like it wanted to die on me. My stomach dropped. The fuel tank was half full, I'd checked. Still, the headlight dimmed for a split second before flaring back. That's when I noticed it. A man, or at least something shaped like a man, stood at the corner just under the broken lamp. He was impossibly tall, his arms hanging down almost to his knees. His face was shadowed, but his head turned unnaturally quick like a glitch in a video. My instinct screamed at me to slow down, but I gunned the accelerator instead, heart pounding in my throat. As I passed him, he whispered something. I couldn't make out the words, but it crawled into my ears like static, like someone tuning an old radio. My mirrors shook, and for a split second I swore his reflection in the side mirror was sitting behind me on the scooter, closer than my own breath. I didn't dare look back. By the time I burst out of the shortcut and back onto the main road, sweat soaked through my shirt, and my hands gripped the handlebars so tightly they ached. The city noise returned, horns, vendors shouting, a distant train horn, and it felt like I'd just escaped a tunnel underwater. When I finally delivered the food, the customer barely glanced at me, just grabbed the bag with an annoyed, "You're late." I didn't even bother explaining. Back outside, I leaned against my scooter trying to catch my breath. My phone buzzed again. It was a message from Imran, the wiry rider who'd warned me earlier. "Did you take Ray Road?" I froze. How could he know? Before I could type a reply, another message came. "Don't ever do it again. That's rule 1. The shadows on that road don't belong to the living." My fingers trembled. I wanted to ask 100 questions, but before I could, the app buzzed with another order. No time to think, no time to breathe. I just swallowed the lump in my throat and told myself I'd get answers later. Still, as I strapped the bag again and got back on my scooter, I couldn't shake the image of that figure. The way its head snapped, the voice that crawled under my skin, the way the engine almost died right when I passed him. For the rest of the night, I stuck to the main roads. Even if it meant an extra 10 minutes, I didn't care. Every time I saw a flickering streetlight, my stomach twisted. Every shadow in the corner of my eye made me flinch. I thought about what Rajesh had said earlier, how he never laughed, just nodded like he knew. Maybe he'd taken that road once. Maybe he'd seen what I saw. Or worse, I didn't tell anyone else about it that night. Who would believe me? A delivery guy claiming ghosts on a shortcut? They'd just say I was tired or hallucinating from the heat. But deep down, I knew it wasn't just in my head. The rules weren't just superstition, they were survival. And I had already broken the first one. The rest of that first night passed in a blur of deliveries, but the figure on Ray Road never left my mind. I made it home just after 2 a.m., collapsed on the thin mattress in my rented room and told myself it was just exhaustion playing tricks. Mumbai can do that to you, squeeze your senses until you don't know what's real anymore. But the next evening, when I strapped on my helmet and switched the app back on, a small part of me dreaded what else I might run into. The orders flowed quickly. Office workers stuck late, families too tired to cook, college kids on late-night study binges. Everyone wanted food delivered. I was zigzagging from Colaba to Dadar, weaving through traffic like I'd done for years. For a while, it felt normal again. The city lights, the honking horns, even the stray dogs chasing my scooter. It was the Mumbai I knew. Then came an order that pulled me back into unease. Paneer rolls, pickup from a small stall tucked under the JJ flyover. I'd eaten there before during the day. Cheap, greasy, nothing special. But at night, the place looked different. Half the shutters pulled down, a single dim bulb buzzing overhead, flies swarming around the counter. The cook barely acknowledged me, just shoved the paper bag toward me without lifting his eyes. As I waited for the app to confirm the pickup, another rider pulled up beside me. He was older, stockier, his helmet scratched all over. He glanced at my bag, then at me. "You're the new guy Imran warned about, right?" I frowned. "What do you mean?" He lit a biddy, inhaled, and said flatly, "Word gets around. You took the Ray Road shortcut." I stayed quiet. He blew out smoke and continued. "Listen, there are rules. Nobody writes them down, but you either learn them quick or you don't last long in this job." "What kind of rules?" I asked, my voice lower than I intended. He looked at me like I was a kid who hadn't learned to cross the street. Rule 2. Never deliver to the top floor if the elevator's broken. If the customer insists, cancel the order. Simple as that, I laughed nervously. "That's just because of the stairs, right?" His expression didn't change. "No, it's because some doors upstairs don't lead where you think." Before I could ask more, his phone buzzed and he sped off into the night, leaving me with the smoke and his words hanging in the air. I shook it off. It had to be some kind of hazing ritual. Riders messing with the newbie. Still, when the app buzzed with the customer's address, an old apartment building near Grant Road, I felt my stomach tighten. I parked outside, craning my neck up at the 7 floors stacked like tired concrete blocks. Sure enough, the elevator had a handwritten sign taped across it. Not working. My finger hovered over the call customer button. Should I really cancel just because of a creepy warning? The payout wasn't big, but my acceptance rate mattered. I decided to go up. Each flight of stairs creaked under my boots, the walls damp with peeling paint. The building smelled like old curry and stagnant water. By the time I reached the 7th floor, sweat rolled down my back. I found the door number, knocked, and waited. No answer. I knocked again, louder this time. That's when I noticed the door opposite. It looked identical. Same number plate, but the digits were wrong. Tilted slightly, like someone had stuck them back hastily. The wood was darker too, as if burned. Behind me, the real door creaked open. A tired-looking woman peeked out. "Delivery?" she asked, reaching for the bag. I handed it over quickly, barely mumbling, "Enjoy your meal." I glanced back at the other door, still shut tight, no light seeping from the cracks. For a split second, I thought I heard something breathing behind it. I hurried down all 7 flights, heart thumping. Outside, I finally exhaled and lit a cheap cigarette, though I barely smoked. My hands trembled as I dialed Imran. He didn't pick up. That night, 3 more riders crossed my path, each dropping hints about rules like they were part of some secret club. One told me never to accept orders past 3 a.m., no matter how good the payout. Another said if a customer asked you to come inside and shut the door behind you, you had to refuse. They all spoke like it was common knowledge, like everyone knew except me. I tried to laugh it off, but the more they said, the more I noticed the city itself seemed to agree. A street that was bustling at 11 p.m. could turn deserted by 12:15. A shop window would have a reflection that didn't quite match the inside. Dogs barked at empty corners, refusing to walk past certain alleys. By my 4th night, I'd memorized the basics. Stick to the main roads, avoid the top floor, watch the clock. I followed them religiously, half out of fear, half out of curiosity. But Mumbai has a way of testing you. It was past 1 a.m. when I got a pickup from a Chinese joint in Mazgaon. The bag smelled of chili and soy, my stomach growling as I strapped it in. The delivery address was a narrow lane I didn't recognize. The map showed it clearly, but when I got there, the street didn't exist. The lane curved into nothing but a wall of corrugated metal like a construction site. I circled back, checked again. Same result. Then out of nowhere, my phone buzzed with a message from the customer. "We're waiting." "Don't keep us hungry," I typed back. "Address seems wrong." No reply. A man selling tea from a cart nearby gave me a long look. "Who are you looking for?" I read him the address. His face went pale. "Cancel it," he said sharply. "That's not for you." "Why?" "What's wrong with the street?" He shook his head, refusing to say more, just muttering, "Some streets open only for the dead." My skin crawled. I canceled the order on the spot, losing the fee. For the rest of the shift, I kept glancing over my shoulder, half expecting someone or something to follow. By the time I stumbled home at dawn, I realized the city had changed for me forever. I couldn't tell what was real anymore. Every delivery wasn't just about getting food to a customer. It was about survival, about staying one step ahead of whatever waited in the cracks of Mumbai's nights. And the worst part? I knew I'd barely scratched the surface of the rules. The days blurred into nights, and the nights blurred into something else entirely. I had been delivering for a week straight, and by now I wasn't just a rider on Mumbai's streets, I was a shadow among them. The rules weren't rumors anymore. They felt real, stitched into the very concrete and neon of the city. Imran finally answered one of my late calls after ignoring me for days. His voice was hushed, like he was afraid someone might overhear through the phone. "Arjun," he said, "you're still alive, so that means you're following at least some of the rules. But don't fool yourself. The city is watching. It has its own laws." "What do you mean, the city is watching?" I asked, half annoyed, half desperate. He sighed. "Look, I can't explain everything. Just remember, Mumbai doesn't belong to us after midnight. We're guests then. Deliver, keep your head down, and leave. Nothing more." Then he hung up. That night I got a pickup from a late-night biryani joint near Baikala. The place was loud, fluorescent lights buzzing, a mix of drunk men laughing and families eating silently. I picked up the heavy bag and glanced at the address, a chawl near Suri. Something about it made my stomach twist, though I couldn't say why. The lane was narrow, lined with old buildings stacked close together, laundry hanging like tired flags. Kids' bicycles leaned against broken walls. But when I reached the door number, the street was dead quiet. Too quiet, I knocked, no answer. I was about to call the customer when the door next to me cracked open. An old man peered out, his face half hidden in shadow. "Who are you delivering to?" he asked. "Flat 3B, I said. His eyes narrowed. "There is no 3B. Then he shut the door before I could say another word. The app buzzed in my hand, a notification lighting the screen. "Don't listen to them. We're hungry." My blood turned cold. I should have canceled. Every nerve in my body screamed at me too. But instead I knocked again. Slowly, the door creaked open, revealing a young boy, maybe 10 years old. He smiled politely. "Food for us?" Behind him, the room was pitch black, too dark for a normal flat. No light, no furniture, just endless black. My hand trembled as I held out the bag. The boy didn't take it. He just stared up at me with unblinking eyes. Then a woman's voice came from deep inside the darkness. "Bring it in." I froze. Rule 4. It came back to me in a rush. Never step inside if they ask you to close the door. "I can't," I muttered, setting the bag on the floor. I stepped back quickly, heart hammering. The boy's smile faded into something colder. The door shut slowly, leaving me alone in the silent lane. I ran down the stairs 2 at a time, refusing to look back. My legs felt weak by the time I reached my scooter. I didn't care about the delivery rating anymore. That was the first night I almost quit. But quitting isn't easy when you owe rent, when your family back in Nashik is depending on the money you send every week. I told myself maybe I'd been imagining things. Maybe the city was breaking me down with exhaustion. Maybe. The next night, though, things got worse. Around midnight, I was idling outside CST station, waiting for my next order. The place was eerily empty, the huge stone building looming over me. My app buzzed pickup sandwiches. Drop marine lines, easy, or so I thought. When I reached the pickup spot, the stall was closed. Shutters down, no lights, no people. I checked the order again. The timer kept counting down. And then my phone vibrated with a message. "The sandwiches are ready. Come behind." Behind the stall was a narrow alley littered with trash and broken crates. The smell hit me first. Rot, damp, something worse. But at the end of the alley was a single plastic bag sitting neatly on the ground. Tied shut, waiting. I stared at it for a long time. Was this some kind of prank or worse? My phone buzzed again. "Hurry, we're hungry." Against my better judgment, I picked it up. The bag was cold. Too cold, like it had been in a freezer. I didn't open it. I just strapped it onto my scooter and sped toward Marine Lines. The delivery address was a seafront building. The watchman stopped me at the gate, his eyes going straight to the bag. "Who gave you this?" he demanded. "From the sandwich stall near CST, I stammered. He shook his head furiously. "That stall shut down 3 years ago. Don't take it inside. Throw it in the sea," I blinked, stunned. "What's in it?" He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Do what I said. The sea knows what to do." My hands trembled as I untied the bag. Inside were sandwiches, yes, but the bread was soggy, discolored, like it had been sitting for weeks. The smell of rot nearly made me gag. Without thinking, I walked to the seawall and hurled the bag over. The black wave swallowed it with a splash. When I turned back, the watchman was gone. The gate was locked, like no one had been there at all. I didn't take another order that night. By then, I knew the rules weren't just survival tips. They were the only thread keeping me tethered to reality. But the more I followed them, the more I felt like I was slipping away from who I used to be. I caught myself one morning staring at my reflection in the cracked mirror of my room. My eyes looked sunken, my face pale. I barely recognized the man staring back. "Maybe you're losing it, Arjun," I muttered. "Maybe it's just the stress." But a small voice in my head whispered otherwise. "Or maybe you're finally seeing the city for what it really is." And deep down, I feared that voice was right. I thought I could keep skating around the edges, dodging the strange orders and clinging to the rules like they were safety rails. But the city doesn't let you cheat for long. It always drags you in deeper. It was a Friday night, the air sticky with humidity and traffic even worse than usual. Horns blared, rickshaws weaved like mad dogs, and I felt half dead from lack of sleep. I told myself one more delivery, then I'll call it a night. That's when the app pinged. "Pick up Dadar station. Drop. Worley Seaface." Dadar is always chaos. Buses belching smoke, vendors shouting, thousands of feet shoving past. But when I reached the pickup point, it was strangely quiet. The platform lights flickered like they hadn't been serviced in years. A tea stall stood open, but no one manned it. Just a single paper bag sat on the counter with my order number scrawled in red marker. I hesitated. My stomach twisted, but my hand still reached for the bag. As soon as I touched it, the fluorescent tube above me buzzed and went out. Darkness fell across the platform. From the far end, I heard footsteps. Heavy, deliberate dragging. I froze. "Who's there?" My voice cracked, no answer. Just the footsteps growing louder. Clutching the bag, I ran down the stairs and out to my scooter. I didn't look back. My helmet strap fumbled in my shaking hands as I kicked the scooter to life. By the time I hit the main road, my throat was dry and my heartbeat was pounding in my ears. The drop was at an apartment complex facing the sea. Tall, glass-fronted, too expensive for someone like me. A security guard sat at the gate, tapping his stick against the ground. When he saw the bag, his face darkened. "Don't take it inside," he said firmly. "What?" I asked, confused. "Whatever's in that bag isn't meant for this place. If you step inside, you won't come out." His voice shook. "Throw it in the sea now." My hand tightened on the handlebar. I'd heard something like this before from the watchman at Marine Lines. I wanted to believe it was coincidence, but deep down I knew better. "I can't just throw a customer's food," I muttered, more to myself than him. The guard's eyes locked on mine. "Do you want to live, Beta? Listen to me. Throw it away." Before I could respond, the app buzzed with a new message. "Don't trust him. We're waiting upstairs." The phone slipped from my hand. My chest felt like it was caving in. Someone or something was watching me. Not just random accidents, not tricks of fatigue. They knew. The guard leaned closer, whispering urgently, "Look at the sea. They always wait there." Against every instinct, I turned my head. Out beyond the seawall, the waves were unusually still, as if holding their breath. Then, movement, pale shapes bobbing in the black water. Faces. Dozens of faces, half submerged, eyes glimmering faintly under the streetlights. I gasped, stumbling backward. The paper bag slipped from my hand and hit the pavement with a dull thud. The smell of rot burst out instantly, foul enough to make me gag. The guard grabbed my arm. "Go now!" I didn't argue. I ran to my scooter and sped off, leaving the bag where it lay. But as I tore through the empty streets, I kept glancing into my mirror. And that's when I saw them. At first, it was just one figure, a man running impossibly fast, keeping pace with my scooter. His skin was gray, stretched thin, eyes glowing faintly white. Then another appeared, and another. A whole swarm of them sprinting silently behind me. Their mouths open, but no sound coming out. I twisted the throttle as far as it would go, the engine screaming. My eyes watered from the wind. They were gaining. I swerved down a side lane, desperate to lose them. Narrow alleys flashed past, stray dogs barked, shadows clung to corners. I didn't dare stop. My only thought was to reach a main road, find light, people, anything normal. Finally, I burst out onto a crowded stretch near Haji Ali. Cars honked, vendors shouted. The world felt alive again. I looked back, nothing. The road was empty. My chest heaved with ragged breaths. I was alive, but my relief was short-lived. My phone buzzed again. Hands trembling, I lifted it from the holder. A single line glowed across the screen. "You broke the chain. Now you owe us." I nearly dropped the phone. My skin crawled. What chain? What debt? For the rest of the night, I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching me. Every reflective window showed a flicker of movement that wasn't there when I turned. Every honk, every hiss of the sea breeze felt like a whisper in my ear. When I finally reached my tiny rented room, I locked the door and collapsed onto the bed. I wanted to convince myself it had been exhaustion, a hallucination. But the rot smell clung to my clothes, to my skin, like a curse I couldn't wash off. Sleep wouldn't come. I kept hearing footsteps outside my door, slow, deliberate dragging. Just like on the platform, I pressed a pillow over my ears and whispered to myself, "The rules are real. The rules are real." That was the night I stopped doubting. There was no maybe, no stress playing tricks. The city had me. And I was bound by its laws. The worst part? I wasn't sure if surviving was even an option anymore, or if I was just buying time until my turn came. I didn't think they'd collect so soon. I thought maybe I had time, a few days, a week, to figure things out. But the city doesn't give you time. It decides when it's ready to break you. The message on my phone haunted me. "You broke the chain. Now you owe us." I stared at the cracked screen until dawn crept through my window, the orange glow spilling across the tiled floor. My neighbors were waking, the clatter of buckets and the hum of prayers filling the building. For a few minutes, I almost convinced myself I was safe. Then my phone buzzed again. "Tonight, one delivery. Refuse and you'll never wake up." I wanted to throw the damn phone into the sea, but it wasn't the phone, was it? It was them. Whatever they were, and they knew where I lived. That evening, against every sane impulse, I logged into the app. A single order appeared, already accepted for me. No way to cancel. No other jobs. Just one. Pickup. Abandoned textile mill by Culla. Drop unlisted. That was new. I almost didn't go. I sat on my scooter, helmet in my lap, shaking so badly I could barely hold my breath steady. But then I remembered the footsteps outside my door, the faces in the water, the swarm chasing me. If this was the debt, refusing meant death. Maybe worse. The mill loomed against the night sky, a skeleton of concrete and rusted beams. Broken windows gaped like missing teeth. Stray dogs prowled near the gate but didn't bark at me, just slunk back with their tails between their legs. Even they wanted no part of this place. Inside, dust coated everything. The smell was old, metallic, like dried blood. A single bulb flickered from the ceiling, illuminating a metal table. On it sat a wooden box about the size of a shoebox, carved with symbols I didn't recognize. I didn't touch it right away. My legs shook as I stepped closer, heart hammering. The phone buzzed again. Take it. Don't open it. Deliver as told. I swallowed hard, grabbed the box and nearly dropped it. It was heavy, much heavier than wood should be. Something inside shifted with a dull scrape. As I turned to leave, I froze. A man stood by the doorway. At least I thought it was a man. He wore a driver's uniform like mine, reflective vest, helmet dangling from one hand, but his face was blurred, like a badly rendered image. You shouldn't have broken the chain, he said. Voice distorted, like three people speaking at once, my throat locked. Who are you? Before me there were others. Before them more. We all owed. We all paid. He stepped closer, his blurred features twisting, glitching. If you fail tonight, you join us. I stumbled back, clutching the box tighter. What's in it? His laughter was broken, jagged like static. Don't open it. Don't ever open it. You're just the mule. When I blinked, he was gone. The doorway stood empty. Only the faint smell of petrol and sweat lingered. I forced myself outside, box strapped to the scooter. The app showed only one direction, south. No drop address, just a pulsing arrow guiding me like a leash. Mumbai at night is alive always. Even at 2 a.m., the streets hum with vendors, lovers, drunk men spilling out of bars. But as I followed the arrow, the city seemed to change. Roads emptied. Stalls shuttered. Even the air felt different, heavier. By the time I reached the coast, it felt like I was the only living soul left in the city. The arrow pulsed faster. Ahead, I saw it. The Bandra-Worli Sea Link rising out of the dark water. But the app directed me not onto the bridge, but down a side road that led to the old docks. The docks were deserted. Cranes rusted in silence, shipping containers stacked like tombs. I parked near the edge of the pier, sea spray cold against my skin. The phone buzzed one last time. Leave the box. Walk away, don't look back. My hands trembled as I set the box down on the cracked concrete. The wood felt colder than stone. I turned to leave, but curiosity clawed at me. What debt was I paying? Who or what was waiting for this? I took one step, then stopped. The sound came first. Footsteps, dozens of them emerging from the shadows. Figures stepped out from between the containers. Men and women, their faces pale and bloated, clothes waterlogged, eyes blank like those I'd seen floating off Worli. They surrounded the box in silence, their movements slow, ritualistic. One of them looked up at me. His lips moved, though no sound came. Then all at once they sank to their knees and pressed their foreheads to the ground around the box. The urge to flee was overwhelming. But I couldn't move. My body locked, my chest tight. Then the box rattled. Something inside was alive. The figures froze, heads bowed. The wood bulged as though something pushed from within. I backed away, breath shallow, every instinct screaming to run. Suddenly the lid cracked open. Just a sliver. Enough for a pale hand. Long fingers, nails black and broken, to slip out. The drowned figures groaned in unison, a wet, choking sound. They reached toward the box, but none dared touch it. And then the hand pointed at me. I bolted. My scooter roared to life and I sped through the maze of containers, heart slamming against my ribs. Behind me, I heard the box crash to the ground and a sound that didn't belong in this world. A shriek that rattled the air itself. I didn't stop until I was back on the main road. Lights and noise rushing around me. Only then did I pull over, shaking so hard I nearly collapsed. The phone buzzed. One message, debt paid. For now. I stared at the screen, bile rising in my throat. For now. That meant it wasn't over. When I finally reached home, the sky was already paling with dawn. I locked the door, slid down against it, and buried my face in my hands. I wanted to cry, scream something, but nothing came. Just emptiness. Later that day, as I sat in my tiny room, I noticed something carved faintly into my arm. Thin, shallow scratches forming words I didn't understand. Not English, not Hindi, not Marathi. Just lines and symbols curling into my skin like the carvings on the box. The rules weren't just about survival anymore. They were marking me, pulling me deeper, and for the first time I realized survival might not be the point at all. Maybe the city didn't want me alive. Maybe it wanted me to belong. The scratches on my arm never faded. No matter how hard I scrubbed, the marks remained. Faint but permanent curling symbols etched like they belonged to my skin. I wore long sleeves in the Mumbai heat just to hide them, but every night I could feel them burn faintly, like whispers pressed against my flesh. I told myself I was done. That after the doc, after the box, I'd logged out of the app for good. But you can't quit something you never signed up for. The city doesn't let you. 3 nights later, my phone lit up again. I ignored it. I turned it face down, shoved it under a pillow. But the buzzing didn't stop. It kept going until my walls seemed to vibrate, until I swore the bulb above my head flickered with each buzz. Finally, with trembling hands, I picked it up. One message, just 5 words, tonight. Breaker's test, don't fail, I didn't understand. Breaker's test? I almost laughed, it sounded like a video game level. But the marks on my arm pulsed, burning hotter. I realized it wasn't a choice. The job appeared automatically. No accept button, no decline, pickup, Whirly Milk Colony. Drop, multiple. I cursed under my breath, slammed the phone down, but within the hour I was on my scooter again, weaving through the crowded night streets. The milk colony was nearly deserted. Rows of crumbling warehouses and sheds where stray cows wandered like ghosts. The app's arrow led me to a building with faded paint and broken shutters. Inside, under the dim glow of a lantern, stood a single man. Or maybe not a man. He was tall, thin, his head shaved clean, and his skin so pale it looked powdered. His eyes were sunken, dark rings bruising his face, but they were steady. Steady in a way that made me feel like he was reading me, not looking at me. On the table beside him were 3 delivery bags. Plain black heavy, you're Arjun, he said. His voice was calm, clear, almost polite. I swallowed hard. Yeah, you've paid once. That was your debt. But this? He slid one of the bags toward me. This is the test. Fail and you'll wish they had drowned you in the sea. What's in them? I asked, my throat dry. He tilted his head slightly, like the question amused him. You already know the rules. Don't ask, don't open, don't question. I hesitated, staring at the bags. 3 of them. And if I refuse? The pale man smiled, showing teeth too sharp, too many. Then you become the delivery. I didn't need to ask what he meant. I strapped the first bag onto my scooter and checked the app. This time there was no map, no arrow, just a single line of text. Deliver to the one who asks. I frowned, confused. Deliver to who asks? How the hell would I know? But I rode anyway because the city pushes you forward whether you understand or not. The streets were alive more than usual. It was festival season. The Ganesh Chaturthi crowd spilling into every lane, drums pounding, chants echoing. My scooter weaved through the chaos, but the weight of the bag pressed down, making the bike harder to control. Near Shivaji Park, a man flagged me down. Ordinary-looking, shirt, jeans, a tilak smeared across his forehead from puja. You have something for me, he said. Not asked, stated. I froze. How do you? He tapped the bag. This one. My fingers shook as I handed it over. He didn't sign anything, didn't even check his phone. He just took it, smiled with teeth too white, and melted back into the crowd. One down. The second bag was worse. I was driving along Marine Drive, sea wind whipping my face when a group of kids blocked the road, barefoot, ragged faces smeared with dust. One of them, a girl no older than 10, stepped forward. Mama says you have food for us. I froze. My chest tightened. They couldn't be part of this. They were just kids, but the bag burned against my leg, heavy, insistent. I shook my head. No, this isn't for you. The girl's eyes went dark, her lips curling back. The others hissed, their small teeth sharp. Too sharp, their eyes reflecting the streetlight like animals. Mama says you owe us, she whispered. The marks on my arm seared with pain. I screamed, tearing the bag off the scooter and throwing it at her feet. The children pounced, tearing into it with clawed fingers, though I couldn't bring myself to look inside. I just gunned the throttle and tore away, heart hammering, bile rising in my throat. 2 down. The last one broke me. The app directed me back toward Dharavi, the place where everything had started. Narrow alleys, neon lights buzzing, the smell of frying oil and sewage mixing in the air. I parked at the end of a lane, bag strapped tight, and waited. Minutes passed, nothing, then I heard it. Arjun. I turned. My blood froze. It was my mother. She stood at the end of the alley, wearing the same faded green sari she always wore at home. Her hair tied in the same bun. Her voice the same warm tone I'd known since childhood. "Give it to me, Beta," she said softly, holding out her hands. "I've been waiting," my throat closed. My mother lived in Nashik, hours away. She didn't even know I drove deliveries. This wasn't her. It couldn't be, but it looked like her, sounded like her, smelled like her. My chest heaved. "No, you're not real," she smiled sadly. "Don't you trust your own mother?" Tears burned my eyes. Every instinct screamed to hand it over, to end this nightmare, to believe. But another voice inside me, faint but firm, whispered, "This is the test. Breaker's test. If I gave her the bag, I'd never know what I had delivered. I'd never know if I had just killed someone else, or worse, bound myself forever." For the first time, I thought about breaking the rule. I yanked the bag open. The stench hit me first. Rotten meat, sour milk, something alive and decaying all at once. Inside was no food, no package. It was a mass of flesh, pulsing faintly, covered in the same symbols carved on my arm. Veins snaked through it, twitching. A faint heartbeat echoed from within. My mother's face twisted, peeling away like wet paper, revealing hollow sockets, a mouth too wide, skin sagging like wax. "You broke the rule," she hissed, voice layered, hundreds of voices at once. "You broke the chain." I staggered back, gagging, but something inside me shifted. For the first time since this began, I felt a spark of defiance. "Then I'll break all of them," I spat. I hurled the bag into the open drain that cut through the alley. The flesh hissed on contact with the filthy water, steaming, writhing, then dissolving into black sludge. The creature screamed, a sound that rattled every window, sent dogs howling, lights flickering. Its body warped, shriveled, and collapsed into the gutter, leaving only the sari tangled in the trash. Silence. I stood shaking, gasping, my skin burning where the symbols had been. When I looked down, they were gone. My arm was clean, my phone buzzed. One line of text. "You chose. Now you belong to neither side, neither side." I didn't know what that meant. But as I rode home through the darkened city, I realized something. I wasn't free. I wasn't safe. But for the first time, I wasn't just their mule. I had broken the chain. And now, whatever came next, it would come for me. I thought it was over. I thought throwing that pulsing bag into the drain had freed me. The marks had burned off my arm. The whispers in my head had gone quiet. For the first time in weeks, I rode through the streets without feeling like someone was sitting behind me, breathing on my neck. But freedom in Mumbai is a joke. No one really gets out. That night, as I parked my scooter outside the dingy chawl I called home, I saw something waiting for me. A paper folded neatly pinned to my door with a rusted nail. No app, no buzz, no glowing arrow. Just plain paper. My stomach turned before I even opened it. 3 words, scrawled in black ink. "Come to Bendi Bazaar, the oldest heart of the city." Narrow alleys, crumbling buildings leaning against each other like drunks. The smell of fried kebabs mixed with rotting garbage. A place alive with noise and secrets. But at night it belonged to someone else. I told myself I wouldn't go. I told myself I'd burn the note, lock the door, pretend none of this existed. But when I looked down at my hands, I saw something worse than the marks. They were clean, too clean. The skin was pale, almost translucent, and when I held them under the bulb, faint black veins shimmered just beneath, like I wasn't mine anymore. So I went. The streets of Bendi were deserted at that hour. The stalls shuttered, stray dogs prowling the corners. My scooter felt heavier with each turn, the air thicker as if the city itself was pressing down. The app wasn't guiding me, but my body moved like it knew where to go. Past the mosque, past the rows of cracked walls covered in peeling Bollywood posters, until I reached a narrow lane I'd never noticed before. At the end of the lane stood a door. Old wood painted red with carvings etched into it, the same curling shapes I'd once carried on my arm. I pushed it open. The smell hit me first. Damp stone. Incense burned too long, and something else, metallic and sour. Inside was a hall, long and dimly lit, its walls lined with mirrors. Not shiny, not clean. The glass was warped, cracked, cloudy. When I passed them, my reflection lagged like it was watching me but not keeping up. At the end of the hall sat a group of people, or at least they looked like people. A circle, cross-legged on the floor, their faces hidden behind masks, wooden, painted crudely with bright colors. One mask was grinning, one crying, one snarling, one blank. The only light came from candles flickering between them. The pale man from the milk colony was there, maskless. He smiled when he saw me. "Arjun," he said softly, as if greeting a long-lost friend. "Breaker of rules. You've been expected." My throat was dry. "What is this place?" "The court," he said simply, "where the laws of this city are written. Not the laws of men, no. The ones beneath. The ones that keep the streets breathing, the lights burning, the sea from swallowing us whole. Every delivery boy, every beggar, every sleeper on the pavement, whether they know it or not, they serve these laws." He gestured to the masked circle. "And when someone breaks them," he leaned forward, "we decide if they belong or if they vanish." I took a step back, my heart pounding. "I didn't choose any of this. You dragged me in," the pale man chuckled. "And you think the traffic asks the driver if he chooses the jam? You were in the lane the moment you took your first ride. The city chose you," the circle stirred. One mask, the crying one, spoke in a voice low and gravelly. He broke the chain. He defied the mother. He dissolved the flesh. Another voice, sharper, from the snarling mask. "That makes him dangerous. If one breaks the law, others may follow." The pale man raised a hand. "And yet, he survived. That makes him useful." They turned to me as one, the weight of 1,000 eyes behind the wooden faces. My chest felt crushed. "What do you want from me?" I managed to choke out. The blank mask spoke then, voice hollow, empty. "The ordeal, to walk where no rider walks, to see what lies at the center. If he survives, he belongs. If not..." The voice trailed off, but I didn't need it finished. The pale man smiled again, and with the snap of his fingers, the mirrors lining the hall began to glow. The reflections shifted, no longer showing me, but streets. Mumbai streets, alive, crowded, endless. Except they were wrong, twisted. The sky above was black, no stars, no moon. The people walked too stiffly, their faces too blurred, their mouths moving without sound. "Step through," the pale man said, "and deliver yourself." I shook my head, trembling. "No, I'm done. I'm not your mule anymore." "Refuse," snarled the mask, "and you deliver nothing again. Not to others, not to yourself. You will dissolve into the gutters, nameless." The pale man's voice softened. "But accept, and you'll see the truth. The rules aren't chains, Arjun. They're the blood in the city's veins. Break them and you bleed. Obey them and you live. But only those who've seen the center can choose. Step through." I looked at the mirrors. One showed Marine Drive, but the sea was red, waves lapping against the concrete. Another showed Dadar Station, but the crowd was made of faceless shadows, pressing, suffocating. Another showed Dharavi, but the alleys curved endlessly, spiraling inward like a maze. My chest heaved. I wanted to run, but the door behind me was gone. Just the mirrors waiting, so I stepped forward. The glass was cold as I touched it, rippling like water. I pushed through. Suddenly, I was standing in the middle of CST Station. But it wasn't the CST I knew. The Gothic arches loomed darker. The clocks spun backwards, and the people were mannequins. Their jaws hanging loose, eyes painted on. Trains screeched, but they didn't move, rusted to the tracks. My phone buzzed. I looked down. The app was back, but instead of a delivery order, it just said, "Deliver yourself to the center." I staggered forward, heart racing, the mannequins turning their painted eyes toward me as I passed. Their jaws opened wider, grinding. Some reached out, wooden fingers scraping against my clothes. I ran, through the platforms, through the tunnels, until I burst out into another street. But it wasn't escape. Every turn, every road led to another place in the city, twisted, wrong. Bandra Bandstand with waves that whispered my name. Chor Bazaar with stalls selling my own memories. My school notebook, my mother's sari, my first broken phone. Crawford Market, where the vendors called out prices for my skin. My eyes, my heart, I stumbled through them, breath ragged, until finally I reached a place I had never seen before. The center. It was a round courtyard, silent, lit by a single flickering lamp. Around it stood statues, 12 of them massive, faceless, carved from stone. Each held a tablet, etched with words in a language I couldn't read. At the center was a chair, wooden, empty. My phone buzzed again. Sit. Belong. or walk away and vanish. I collapsed to my knees, sweat pouring, my lungs burning. My mind screamed to walk away, but my body knew there was no away. There was only here, a voice whispered from the shadows. The pale man again. This is the final ordeal. You've broken the rules. Now you must decide, will you take their weight, carry the city on your shoulders? Or will you dissolve like all the others who ran? I stared at the chair, trembling. If I sat, I'd be bound forever. If I refused, I'd be erased. The statues loomed, silent judges. The chair waited. And I realized the city wasn't asking me to deliver anymore. It was asking me to become part of it. When my eyes opened, I was lying on the pavement outside CST station. Not the twisted version with mannequins and backward clocks, but the real one. Or at least it looked real. Morning light washed the streets, people bustled, trains screamed overhead. Normal, too normal. I pushed myself up, chest heaving, palms scraped from the stone. No one stopped. No one even looked at me. 1,000 bodies swarmed around, brushing my shoulders, but it was like I didn't exist. I stumbled toward my scooter, parked a few streets away. It was still there, dented, dusty as if it hadn't moved for days. My phone lay in my pocket, dark. No buzzing arrows, no whispering orders. For the first time in weeks, it was quiet. I thought maybe I'd done it. Maybe by refusing that chair, by not binding myself to their laws, I'd broken free. The court, the masks, the mirrors, all behind me. But silence has a way of speaking louder than chaos. The first thing I noticed was the sound, or rather, the lack of it. Mumbai is never quiet. Not at dawn, not at midnight. There's always something. The rickshaw horns, dogs barking, hawkers yelling, even the hum of a generator in the background. But that morning, it felt like someone had pressed mute. The trains screeched, but faintly like echoes played from far away. Vendors opened stalls, but their voices didn't carry. I rode through the streets, gripping the handlebars, the city passing in a blur. Everything looked normal. The chai stalls, the laundry lines, the kids in uniforms heading to school. But no one looked me in the eye. Their gazes slid past, their faces blurred at the edges. At a red light in Baikala, I tried to ask a traffic cop what time it was. He didn't answer. Didn't even blink. Just stood there, one hand raised, frozen like a wax statue. That's when I realized I wasn't back. Not really. I parked near a tea shop I used to haunt. The owner, a stout man with a rag always hanging from his shoulder, was pouring cutting chai. I sat down, waited for him to notice. He didn't. I waved, coughed, even slammed the table, nothing. Finally, I reached for a glass myself. The chai was hot, burning my fingers, but when I sipped, it had no taste. Like drinking steam. The silence pressed heavier. That's when I heard the voice. Soft, slithering, threading through the emptiness. Not outside, not in my ears, inside, in the back of my skull. You should have sat, Arjun. I froze, cup halfway to my lips. You should have belonged. I dropped the glass, shattering it on the stone floor. No one turned, no one flinched. The ragman kept pouring chai, the school kids outside walked past, none of them noticing the mess. Now you are between, the voice whispered. Not theirs. Not yours. Just here. My chest tightened. The air felt thin, hard to swallow. I stumbled out, gasping. The streets blurred, buildings leaning, the sun overhead flickering like a bulb about to die. For hours, maybe longer, I don't know. I rode without direction. Through Crawford Market, through Marine Drive, through Dharavi. Everywhere the same. Life moving, people acting, but all of it empty, muted like a film with the sound cut out. I shouted, I screamed, I begged someone to look at me. Nothing. Finally, exhausted, I stopped at Gurgaon Chowpatty Beach. The sea stretched out, gray and still, waves barely brushing the shore. I collapsed onto the sand, burying my face in my hands. The silence there was worse. That's when I saw him. Not the pale man, not the masked circle. A boy, barefoot, thin as a stick, maybe 10 years old. He stood a few feet away, staring. Not past me. At me, my throat tightened. You can see me? The boy nodded slowly. His eyes were dark, too old for his face. He didn't smile, didn't blink. Just said one thing, they're waiting. Who? My voice cracked. Who's waiting? He raised a hand and pointed at the sea. I turned. Out on the horizon, the water shifted. Shapes moved beneath the surface, massive, shadowy, like towers rising then sinking again. I blinked and the boy was gone. The silence deepened, pressing against my skull until I thought it would split. I screamed then. Not words. Not pleas, just raw noise, desperate to hear something, anything. The cry tore out of me, echoing down the empty beach. For a second, the city seemed to pause. The sea stilled. The air itself froze. Then came a sound. Not loud. Not thunder. A heartbeat. Slow, deep pulsing. Thud, thud, thud. It wasn't mine. It wasn't human. It was the city, and it was awake. I sat on that beach for what felt like hours, listening to the sound. The heartbeat of Mumbai. Thud, thud, thud. It wasn't in the air. It was in me, pressing against my ribs, vibrating in my teeth. My scooter was parked behind me, but I couldn't bring myself to move. For the first time, I realized this city wasn't just a place. It was alive. And I wasn't just lost in it. I was trapped inside it. I tried to remember the boy's words. They're waiting. Who? The masked circle? The pale man? The sea? Or worse, was it the city itself waiting for me to make a choice? The silence began to stretch again, pulling at my nerves. I forced myself onto my scooter, twisted the throttle, and sped away from the beach. The city opened up before me. Traffic flowing but soundless, hawkers waving their arms but mouths moving with no voice. I needed answers. And there was only one place I knew where the rules had first been given. The chai stall where the whisper began. When I arrived, the ragman was still there, still pouring. This time I didn't wait. I slammed my hand on the counter and shouted, "I know you hear me. Don't pretend anymore." For a heartbeat, nothing. Then his hand froze. His eyes lifted. For the first time since this nightmare began, someone looked straight at me. "You shouldn't be here." His voice was rough like stone dragged on stone. "Then tell me where I should be." I shot back. "I've run your streets, followed your rules, dodged your punishments."
What am I now?
"A ghost?" He set the kettle down. "Between," he said simply. "That is worse than death." I leaned closer. "Then give me a way out." The ragman's face didn't change, but his voice dropped to a whisper, low and sharp. "There are 2 doors, Arjun, you know this. One is theirs. One is yours. The city will not let you stand in the corridor forever." I shook my head. "Speak plain." He leaned across the counter and I smelled smoke on his breath. "Door 1, you sit. You belong. You drink their silence, follow their laws, and the city becomes your blood. Door 2, you refuse. You fight, and if you succeed, the city will bleed you out. If you fail..." His eyes burned. "It swallows you whole." A cold wind swept through the stall, though no fans turned. My chest nodded.
How do I fight something as big as a city?
The ragman's lips curved, the faintest trace of a smile. By remembering what it really is. Then his eyes clouded and his hands resumed pouring chai as though he'd never spoken at all. I left, shaken. The heartbeat pulsed louder in my skull now, as if the city was listening. 2 doors, I muttered as I rode. 2 doors. Sit or fight, but what did fighting even mean? Burn buildings? Smash roads? The city wasn't brick and steel anymore. It was rules, bloodless, invisible. I drove aimlessly until my scooter coughed out near Dadar. The engine sputtered, then died. I cursed, kicking it, but it wouldn't start. That's when I noticed where I'd stopped. An old post office, its walls peeling, shutters half closed. Something pulled me inside. The air was stale, thick with dust. Desks lay overturned, papers scattered. On the far wall hung a bulletin board, yellowed notices pinned in crooked rows. I stepped closer, heart pounding. Every notice was a rule, not handwritten, not printed, etched as if carved into the paper itself. Do not stop at the 3rd knock after midnight. Do not let the beggar see your wallet. Do not deliver food to the tower that has no windows. If you see your reflection walking ahead of you, turn back. Pages and pages, hundreds of them. The laws of this city stacked on the walls like commandments. My throat closed. This was it. The foundation of everything I'd endured, and in the center of the board, an empty sheet, blank, waiting. I stepped closer. My fingers itched, a strange compulsion. And then I heard it again, that whisper slithering inside my skull. "Right, Arjun." My hand trembled. "Right, and you will belong." But another thought sparked, cutting through the fog. What if I write something different? I pulled a pen from the desk, my palms slick with sweat. The paper waited, white and endless. The whisper pushed harder. Right obedience. Right silence. Instead, I pressed the pen and scrawled no more rules. The board shook. The papers rustled like wings. My ears filled with a roar louder than any heartbeat, as if the whole city cried out in fury. The lights overhead shattered. Glass rained down. I stumbled back, shielding my face. The notices tore themselves from the wall, swirling, circling me like a cyclone of paper blades. My pen fell, skittering across the tiles. A voice thundered. Not inside, not outside, but everywhere. The city's voice, "You dare." My legs shook. My chest burned. But I screamed into the storm, "I'm done playing by your laws. You can't own me." The paper slashed, cutting my arms, my cheeks. Blood dotted the floor. But I didn't fall. The blank sheet lifted, glowing, hovering in front of me. The pen rolled back, pressing itself into my palm. One last chance. One last law. I raised the pen, teeth gritted, and wrote in jagged letters, "The city belongs to those who live it, not those who rule it." The cyclone stopped. Silence fell. The papers dropped, limp, covering the floor like dead leaves. The glow faded. For a long time, nothing. Just me standing in the wreckage, blood dripping from my arms. Then faintly, the heartbeat slowed. Thud, 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 until it was gone. The silence wasn't oppressive anymore. It was empty. True silence. I stumbled outside, and for the first time the city looked alive. Not in the monstrous way it had before. In the real way. Vendors shouting, buses honking, hawkers laughing. Noise. Beautiful, chaotic noise. A woman brushed past me and muttered, "Watch it, bye." She saw me. She heard me. My knees buckled and I almost wept. But deep down I knew it wasn't over. I hadn't destroyed the city. I'd only torn one page out of its endless book. And sooner or later it would try to write me back in. When I stepped out of the old post office, I thought I'd won. The noise was back. The honks, the vendors shouting, the music blaring from chai stalls. I walked down the street in disbelief, grinning like a fool, brushing against people who actually looked at me. It felt like sunlight after months in darkness, but it lasted maybe 3 minutes because then the ground shuddered. At first I thought it was traffic, a heavy truck rumbling by. But no, this was deeper, like the earth itself was grinding. The vendors froze. The buses halted mid-road. Every single face turned toward me, and in that silence I realized something. I hadn't freed the city. I'd provoked it. A ripple of whispers rose, echoing from alleyways, rooftops, drains. My own name repeated over and over. Thousands of voices hissing, "Arjun, Arjun, Arjun." I broke into a run. The crowd moved as one, parting and then surging after me. People with blank faces, mouths stretched in unison, chanting my name. Their footsteps hit the pavement in rhythm with the heartbeat I thought I'd silenced. Thud, Arjun. Thud, Arjun. I ducked into a narrow alley, dodging crates, pushing past dogs that barked and then went eerily quiet the second I passed. My scooter was gone. I must have left it at the post office. My chest burned, my legs screamed, but I kept going. I knew where I had to go. The only place that had given me answers, no matter how twisted. The beach. When I reached the shoreline, the sea wasn't calm anymore. Waves slammed against the rocks, white spray rising like fangs. The sand shook under my feet. And standing there waiting was the boy, the one who'd first whispered the rules into my ear. "You wrote," he said, voice hollow. "You weren't supposed to write that." I staggered closer, gasping. The rules were killing me. Killing everyone. Someone had to. His head tilted. "The rules keep balance. You broke it. Now the city chooses." Behind him, shadows rose from the waves. Human shapes, dozens, hundreds, faceless but familiar. The passengers, the beggars, the masked figures. All of them gathering, closing in. I swallowed hard. "Then let it choose," the boy's eyes gleamed. "It already has." The sand split. Cracks zigzagged out from under me, glowing faint red like embers. The air thickened, salty and sharp, burning my lungs. I fell to my knees, coughing. The whispers rose louder, pressing against my skull. "Submit, submit, submit." I pressed my palms to my ears, but it didn't help. I tried to scream, but my throat locked, and then I heard another voice. Not from outside, from deep inside. My own. "You wrote the first line, Arjun. Write the last." I looked around desperately. No pen, no paper, just sand. With trembling fingers, I dug into the ground, scratching words into the wet beach. My nails tore, blood mixing with grit, but I didn't stop. I belong, but not as a slave. The waves howled, crashing higher. Figures screamed. I walked the city, but I choose my steps. The cracks widened, swallowing shadows whole. The law is mine now. For a heartbeat, everything froze. Even the sea hung suspended mid-crash. Then the boy stepped forward. His eyes weren't hollow anymore. They burned with rage. You think you can steal the law? I forced myself to stand, swaying. Not steal, reclaim. His face twisted. He lifted his hand and the shadows surged toward me, arms stretching, fingers clawing. They were faster than thought, faster than breath. I had one choice left, so I did the only thing I could. I opened my arms and let them hit me. The first shadow slammed into my chest, cold as ice and hot as fire at once. Then another and another, until they were pouring into me like smoke, filling my veins, crushing my lungs. I screamed, my body convulsing. Visions exploded in my skull. Every rule I'd seen pinned to the post office wall, every whispered warning, every consequence flooding me. Faces of the dead, voices of the trapped. The city's laws weren't written on paper. They were written in people. I was drowning in them. But then, I remembered the words I'd carved in the sand. My words, I clung to them like a rope, not as a slave. I choose my steps. The law is mine. The shadows writhed inside me, but I pushed back. Not with fists, not with screams, with will, with choice. I took the chaos, the fear, the obedience, and I forced it into one shape, one beat. My heartbeat thud. The shadows shrieked, trying to scatter. But my chest pounded again, stronger. Thud. And suddenly the rhythm wasn't the city's anymore. It was mine. I roared, throwing my arms wide, and the shadows burst out of me in a wave, dissolving into black mist that evaporated into the night sky. The boy stumbled back, eyes wide.
Impossible.
I staggered forward, blood dripping down my arms, my vision swimming. It was never your law. It was ours. And I just took it back. He hissed, face crumbling like ash in the wind. Then he was gone. The sea fell silent. The cracks sealed. I collapsed onto the sand, every muscle screaming. My hands were shredded, my chest on fire. But I was alive. And more importantly, I was free. At least that's what I told myself. Because as I lay there, panting, I heard faint whispers again. Not angry this time. Not commanding, just watching. The law is yours now, Arjun. But so is the burden. I closed my eyes, the waves lapping at my legs. I had survived the city's final test. But I knew the truth, survival wasn't the end. It was the beginning of something worse. Now every step I took, every choice I made could write a new rule. For me, for the city, for everyone still living in its streets, and rules once written never die. When I woke up, the beach was empty. No boy, no shadows, no glowing cracks in the sand. Just early morning haze stretching over the water, the faint smell of diesel from fishing boats, and the sound of seagulls that felt almost too normal. My body ached as if I had been in a fight with the whole city, which in some twisted way I had. I pushed myself upright, palms still raw and bleeding, and stared at the words I had carved into the sand. They were gone, smoothed over, erased by the tide. At first I panicked. If the tide erased them, maybe the city erased my choice. Maybe everything I fought for was gone. But then I realized something chilling. The words weren't in the sand anymore. They were inside me. I stood up, legs wobbling, and looked around. People had started to gather along the road by the beach. Early commuters, chai sellers, kids on bicycles. They weren't chanting my name. They weren't staring blankly. They were just living. Normal. The city breathed again like a giant machine settling into rhythm after overheating. I should have felt relief, but what I felt instead was weight. Because every time someone crossed the street at the wrong moment, my heartbeat jumped. Every time a vendor tried to cheat a customer, my skin prickled. I could feel it. The rules pulsing under the surface of everything. Not the old rules anymore. Not the ones whispered by shadows. These were mine now, and that terrified me more than anything else. By the time I reached my apartment, the sun was high and the streets were fully awake. Rickshaws swerved, horns blared, dogs barked, and for a moment, I almost convinced myself it was all over. Just a nightmare. I unlocked my door, threw my bag onto the couch, and collapsed into bed without even washing the sand off my skin. Sleep came fast, but it wasn't peaceful. I dreamed of a delivery rider, me, but not me. He was on a scooter, his uniform ripped, weaving through traffic. Behind him, a tidal wave of shadows surged, and every street he turned onto rearranged itself like a puzzle, closing him in. He looked back at me, eyes wide, and mouthed words I couldn't hear. Then the wave swallowed him. I woke up gasping, drenched in sweat, and for a few seconds I didn't know where I was. My apartment looked wrong. Angles sharper, colors too flat like a glitch in a game. Then I blinked and it was normal again. That's when it hit me. I hadn't escaped the city. I had become part of it. I avoided rides for 2 days, telling myself I needed rest. But the third night, my phone buzzed with a notification. A delivery request. No name, no address. Just rule check. My stomach dropped. I tried to dismiss it, but my finger hit accept before I even thought. My scooter was waiting outside, keys in the ignition. I hadn't left it there. The ride took me across the city, weaving through streets that felt strangely familiar. Every intersection carried a memory of a rule broken. Every alley echoed with whispers I thought I'd silenced. And when I finally arrived, it wasn't a restaurant. It was the post office. The same place where it had all begun. The walls were clean now, no peeling paint, no papers pinned up. Just one fresh sheet taped to the door. It read, "The city has a keeper. Obey him or obey nothing." My hands shook as I reached out, but the paper dissolved the moment I touched it, leaving only dust. That was weeks ago. I haven't told anyone what really happened. How do you explain something like this? That Mumbai is alive, that it runs on laws written in blood and whispered in alleys, and that somehow I ended up holding the pen? I still deliver food. I still ride the same streets. People look at me differently sometimes, like their eyes catch on me for a second too long. I wonder if they sense it, the way the air shifts when I pass, and the rules. They keep writing themselves. A man stole a wallet on the train last week. Before I could even think, my chest tightened and he froze mid-step. His hand wouldn't unclench until he dropped the wallet back. He ran screaming. A woman ignored a red light, almost causing a crash. I whispered without realizing, "Wait." She slammed her brakes just in time, her eyes wide with terror like she'd heard the voice of God. I don't want this power, but I can't let it go. So here's the truth. The rules weren't about surviving the city. They were about feeding it. About keeping it balanced no matter the cost. And now the cost is mine to bear. I used to think I was just another guy trying to make a living, dodging traffic and deadlines. Now I know I'm something worse, or maybe something better. I can't decide, because every night when I start my scooter and pull into the madness of Mumbai, I feel the city breathe with me. Its pulse matches mine. Its hunger stirs in my gut. Its whispers crawl along my skin. And I know with a certainty that chills me to the bone, that the city doesn't just have rules anymore. It has me. If you ever find yourself walking these streets, if a stranger tells you about rules you don't understand, listen. Don't laugh. Don't brush it off, because the city remembers every step, every choice, and if one day, while you're crossing a crowded intersection or sipping chai by the roadside, you hear your name whispered in the noise, don't turn around. It won't be the city calling, it'll be me.